Hello, my name's Ollie and welcome to my very first video. As you can see, I start out by bulking out my characters with a bit of aluminium foil, or as you Americans say, aluminum. This kind of helps save on plasticine and also kind of makes the characters a little bit lighter, because you know a lot of plasticine kind of weighs the characters down and they tend to fall over and things like that. You want to try and avoid that as best as possible. But as you can see, I bulk out the character with plasticine. It's almost kind of like roughing it out, to be honest, before I start smoothing it out and adding on the fine detail. Some people prefer to roll it out with a pasta maker and kind of put it over like actual clothing. I just prefer to kind of whack it on and just smooth it as I go. The armatures I use are from animationsupplies.net. They come as like, you have to assemble them, come in pieces, and you have to cut the rods down to your preferred length and stuff like that. Now his body is prepped and smooth, I start bulking out the character now with his armour. You know, Batman has a lot of armour. He has chest plates, ab plates, shoulder plates, I don't know, all kinds of plates, dinner plates, I don't know. Hands are a tricky thing to do. They take a little bit of time and they're a bit fiddly. And also when you're actually animating with these characters, it's the hands that get mushed the most, because you know, if you're grabbing things or picking things up, the hands get mushed. Some people prefer to use latex by dipping the hands in latex, and you can also colour the latex or you get latex paints. That also helps. Here I'm just doing the boots now. Pretty simple. And now I'm starting to work on the actual armour, so you know, the shoulder pieces and the shoulder straps. Careful while using these cutting tools. As you can see, I've got lots of scratches on my hands because I'm not very clever and I end up stabbing myself quite a bit. Here we go, just adding some more detail to the actual gauntlets. If I was to actually make an animation with Batman, I'd probably make this character a lot simple. I would kind of cut down a lot of the detail and kind of just, you know, as the old saying is, keep it stupidly simple or keep it stupid simple, whichever you prefer. Now I'm doing the logo. Apparently this logo is actually made of the gun that killed Martha and Thomas Wayne, but I don't know, they never mention that in the film. I hope not, because that's a bit edgelordy. But so yeah, what I'm doing here, I'm actually cutting away from the actual chest piece. I didn't film it very well, you can't really see, it's a bit blurry. In future videos I'm going to try and do more of a top-down approach, so you can actually see a lot more of what I'm doing. My hands are kind of blocking the way here. But yeah, using the same template, I then cut out black and then put it inside the chest piece and then kind of build it up so it's a bit more flush. Now I'm just adding some more detail, some of the, you know, chest plates and stuff like that. Now I'm using fabric to make the belts. I use fabric sometimes because if you do belts and things like that in plasticine, if you have your characters bending over or doing anything like that, it kind of gets squished and squashed, and you know, it's not very good really. You know, it means you have to do a lot more maintenance on the character and fix it up a lot as you're going along. Like I said, I've put a lot of detail into this. I probably wouldn't do that if I was actually making an actual animation with this, because a lot of the detail would just get lost. Here I'm using an Action Man weapon. I find Action Man weapons are really good for these 1/6 scale armatures, because Action Mans were 1/6 scale, so Action Man clothes, their weapons and vehicles and that are all in scale with stop motion armatures and that, so they're really great to use and kind of repurpose and paint up or modify. The actual holster there was made from EVA foam, which is kind of what cosplayers use, and you can either, it's easy to cut, you can heat it up and you can glue it. You know, you normally use contact adhesive to kind of put it together, but a bit of super glue just works here. Here I'm using Fimo. Fimo, if you don't know, is kind of like, it's a bit like plasticine, but you can actually bake it and it goes nice and hard. And so I'm actually just here making all the utility belt things, so you know, pouches and you know, pockets and things like that, and a little belt buckle. And also on his wrist gauntlet, he has, I think they're like his spare grapple hooks. And so I just rolled a few bits of silver Fimo out just to make that. Fimo you bake at 110 degrees for about 30 minutes. And it goes nice and hard. And I'm just gluing them onto the belt here. Looks alright, I think, actually. Yeah, just now gluing on the holster onto his leg. I probably would have painted up that gun, but you know, who cares? Here I'm attaching the spare grapple hooks onto his gauntlet. Sometimes hard and fine mode doesn't stick very well to plasticine, so I actually cheated here and I actually glued them on. It doesn't actually ruin the plasticine because you can pick the glue off easily after the fact, but it does actually help adhere it to the character a little bit. Here I'm starting the neck piece, building up to his collar. I love the collar on this costume. I think it really looks super smart. I really like it. It reminds me of Gotham by Gaslight, but a bit more of a modern day kind of look. As you can see, I've actually pulled a bit of the chest pieces forward. You'll see why I've done that in a minute. So I actually made my own compass using a pencil and a ruler, piece of chalk. So here I'm cutting out the cape. I decided not to go for like the scallops, you know, the kind of arced kind of wing shapes, and I'm not quite sure if he actually has them in the film. I wasn't actually quite sure how to attach the cape, but then I thought probably the best way to do this was to use split pins and just kind of stick it into the plasticine, into the aluminium, and it holds it really well. And you can fold it really nicely and tuck it around the shoulder pads. And again, you just hide it by putting the chest piece back over the top of it. If I was to make this actually to be animated, I probably would have put wire in the cape and stuff like that, but it's sometimes that can be a bit fiddly and it requires a lot of sewing, and I just couldn't be bothered, if I'm perfectly honest. Here I'm making the head. Didn't film it very well, it's a little bit out of focus, but hopefully you can see what I'm doing. I normally use just one tool, and that's this gratis spatula that's used for, I think it's for face makeup application, like, you know, derma wax and things like that. But now and again I use some of the tools for smoothing out, like little rubber tools like that, or the balls and things like that to stick into the eyes, so you've kind of got eye sockets to put the eyeballs in. The eyeballs I get from animationtoolkit.com, and you kind of drill in little holes into them and fill it with plasticine, and then you can use needles and pins to kind of move the eyes around. Just working on the mouth here. Robert Pattinson's got a lovely jawline, so I tried to emulate that as best as I could, and some nice pouty lips and prominent cheekbones. But yeah, I tried to have a little bit of a cartoon look to my characters. I don't try and do them too realistic, but I try my best to kind of make them look, you know, quite professional looking and somewhere smart. But when you're animating, sometimes, you know, the characters look great at the beginning of a production and by the end they look like a hot mess. But you know, you're constantly touching them up and fixing them up and stuff, and so by the end of the shoot the character looks nothing like what they originally intended to look like. But I don't think people really notice. Just putting on the ears here, getting to the end of the make now, just before I add some final details like the stitching and things like that around the cowl. I actually really like the cowl. It kind of reminds me a little bit of a modernised version of the Adam West cowl with all the stitching. It just needs the white eyebrows. Put the head onto the body and then kind of smooth out around the neckline and just add some final details like the stitching. Voila, he is done.